Okay, so let's be honest for a minute. Even geniuses struggle with willpower sometimes.
Hmm.
You're brilliant, obviously, but, we all have those moments, right, where our impulses kind of get the better of
Yeah.
us.
Hmm.
So today we're going to do a deep dive into willpower. Why does it seem so easy sometimes, and other days it's like impossible?
Yeah.
And most importantly, how can we actually get better at it?
Right.
Like, how can we strengthen our willpower, no matter what's going on? So instead of just talking about like vague motivational stuff, we're
Yeah.
going to get into the like real science of it.
The nitty gritty.
Yeah, the nitty gritty. So I was reading this book, The Willpower Instinct,
Okay.
and it talks about this idea of the two minds,
Hmm.
like this battle between our impulsive self and our wiser self.
Oh, that's a good one. It's a really good analogy.
Yeah,
It is. So think about it this way. Your impulsive self is just wired for immediate gratification.
right.
Like it wants the cookie, the extra hour sleep, that dopamine hit from scrolling on social media. Yes. But your wiser self, that's the part of you that's looking out for your long-term well-being.
Right.
Right. That's the voice that says, hey, maybe skipping dessert tonight will help me reach my fitness goals.
Right. Or getting up early so you have more time to focus.
Yes, exactly. Getting up early will give me more time to focus on that project that's really important.
It's kind of like the angel and devil on your shoulders, but it's playing out in your brain, literally.
Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, that wiser self relies on the prefrontal cortex.
Cool.
That's the part of your brain that actually evolved
Interesting.
to help us resist those immediate urges and make those long-term decisions.
This reminds me of that story about Phineas Gage,
Oh, yeah.
the railroad worker
Yes.
who had that horrible accident.
Horrible accident where the metal rod went through his prefrontal cortex.
Went right through his head.
It's crazy.
And it totally changed who he was as a person.
Yeah.
So, like, before the accident, he was known for being responsible and level-headed and reliable.
Right.
But after, he became really impulsive and erratic, and he really struggled to, like, follow through on things.
It's a tragic story, but it really highlights how important that part of our brain is for self-control.
Right. Like, it shows that willpower is more than just trying harder.
Yes, that's
There's
it.
something biological going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, another piece of this puzzle is this idea that willpower is a limited resource.
Yes.
If you heard about that.
Roy Baumeister, his research has been really groundbreaking in this area.
Yeah.
He shows that willpower is not this endless well of strength that we can just tap into whenever.
Okay.
It's more like a muscle. It gets tired when you use it.
Which explains why sometimes it feels like I can do anything, and other days I just want to eat cookies for breakfast.
Totally. Think of it this way. Every time you resist a temptation or make a difficult decision or force yourself to do something you really don't want to do,
Right.
you're depleting those willpower reserves.
Mm.
And as those get lower, you become more susceptible to those impulsive behaviors.
So that's why at the end of a long day when I'm stressed,
Yeah,
I can't say no to ordering pizza.
exactly. And it's not just anecdotal. There are actual studies showing that acts of self-control, like resisting sweets, can actually reduce your physical strength later on.
Oh, wow.
Your willpower muscle is tired.
So it's like we need to work it out like a muscle, but we also need to make sure we're fueling it properly.
Yes, that's a great point.
Right.
You need to fuel it properly, and this is where the link between willpower and blood glucose comes in.
Okay.
So your brain needs energy to function, and it gets that from glucose.
Uh-huh.
When your blood sugar levels dip, your willpower goes down with it.
Wait, so you're telling me that when I'm hangry,
Yes,
it's not just me being dramatic.
it's physiological.
That's like a real thing.
It's a real thing.
Okay.
But it's important to remember this does not mean you should load up on sugar.
Right.
It's about a steady supply of energy from a low glycemic diet.
Okay.
Think whole grains, lean protein, healthy fats, foods that are going to release energy slowly and keep your blood sugar levels stable.
So this is why that mid-afternoon slump feels like I have zero willpower.
Exactly. You're running on empty.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a good strategy for managing those energy levels.
So we need to be strategic about our willpower, okay?
Yes.
But even when we're really trying, sometimes it feels like our brains are working against us.
Yes.
So I read this thing about how we actually often feel like we've run out of willpower before we really have.
That's interesting.
Like our brain is tricking us into thinking we're more exhausted than we actually are.
Yeah, it's like a built-in energy conservation mechanism.
Conserve energy, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like our brain is telling us to stop before we've actually reached our limit.
In a way, yeah. And you know, this guy, Timothy Noakes, who's done a ton of research on athletes, he actually found that they can often push past those limits that they think they have.
Really?
Your bodies can do more, but their brains are sending out these signals of fatigue as a way to conserve energy.
So it's like hitting the brakes before you've actually, run out of gas.
Yeah, and this isn't just physical, it applies to mental effort, too.
Okay.
Think about those times when you're working on something challenging and you hit a wall.
Oh, yeah.
You feel like you can't go on. You've totally run out of mental stamina.
Totally.
But what if that's just your brain trying to conserve energy?
So the trick is to learn how to push past that feeling and get to that extra reserve of willpower that you have.
Exactly. You have to find that motivation, that want power, to kind of override that I'm done signal.
So how do we do that? Like, how do we tap into that want power?
Well, that's when things get really interesting, because it's not about brute force willpower.
Right.
It's about understanding these psychological tricks our brain plays on us and figuring out how to outsmart them. So one of the most interesting strategies is this idea of pre-commitment.
Oh.
It's basically making choices now that are going to kind of bind your future self, the one who's maybe more likely to give in to those impulses.
So it's like outsmarting your own brain.
Yes, exactly.
Set up these safeguards ahead of time.
You see, we tend to view our future selves as kind of different people.
Right.
We're like, oh, future me will be way more disciplined and more motivated.
Yeah, future me is perfect.
Future me can resist all those temptations.
Right. She's got it all figured out.
But the reality is, future you is still you,
Right.
with all the same, weaknesses.
Yeah, all those flaws. So pre-commitment is about knowing those weaknesses
Okay.
and actually creating structures that support us rather than just relying on willpower in the moment.
I see. So it's like acknowledging that you're not always going to have that, peak willpower.
Exactly.
So we're just accepting that and being like, okay, we need to think clearly and rationally ahead of time
Yes.
to make a plan.
Make decisions in advance when I can think straight.
Right.
Okay, so what are some real life examples of that?
Well, think about using those tech tools
Okay.
that block distracting websites when you're supposed to be working.
Right.
Or setting up automatic savings plans
Okay.
where the money's automatically going from your checking to savings each month.
I love that one.
You're taking the decision out of it.
Yeah, future me doesn't even see the money, so it's not a problem.
Exactly. Future, you can't spend money that's not even there.
Right.
And then there are more extreme examples, there are these money management programs for people recovering from addiction,
Oh, wow.
where they basically have a financial manager
Oh, interesting.
that controls their finances entirely.
Wow.
And that's because they've realized that sometimes they need these external safeguards
Right.
to protect them from their own impulses.
So it's like using your knowledge of willpower to
Yeah.
design your environment for success.
Yeah, exactly.
But, sometimes it's not about avoiding temptation.
Right.
Sometimes it's about, getting the motivation to
Yes.
start the things you've been putting off.
The I will power
Yeah.
versus the I won't power.
I willpower.
Right.
Okay, I like that.
So that's where the power of want comes in.
Okay.
You have to tap into what you really desire, the things that actually light you up, that make you feel alive.
Uh-huh.
Because when we're genuinely motivated, willpower doesn't even feel like a struggle.
It's effortless.
Exact. Right.
So it's not about forcing yourself to do things you hate.
No.
It's about aligning those actions with something you actually want to do.
Think about it. No one gets excited about filing taxes or cleaning out their garage.
You're right. Nobody.
But if you connect those tasks to something you actually want to achieve, it changes everything.
So how do we do that? How do we take these boring, mundane things
Right.
and make them more exciting?
It takes some creativity.
Okay.
Think about a student who hates studying,
Right.
but they really want to get into their dream college. Suddenly, opening up those textbooks doesn't feel so bad because it's a step toward what they want.
Yeah, it's part of a bigger goal.
You're framing those tasks in a way
Yes.
that aligns with their values and goals.
Yeah, so you're making the process itself enjoyable.
Yes.
Okay.
It can be as simple as listening to music you love while you exercise,
Right.
or visualizing the end result.
Uh-huh.
You're dopaminizing those I will power challenges.
Oh, I love that. It's like hacking your brain.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it seems like pre-commitment can work both ways.
Yes.
Like, you can pre-commit to avoid the stuff you don't want to do, but you
Yeah.
can also pre-commit to enjoying the things you do want to do.
Absolutely. Pre-committing to enjoyment is just as important
Right.
as pre-committing to avoiding temptation.
Because rest is important.
Rest is super important. We have to remember
Yeah.
that relaxation, indulgence, those things are not the enemy of willpower.
It's part of it.
They're part of it, because when we're constantly in that go, go, go mode, when we're pushing ourselves to the limit without any breaks,
Yeah, you burn out.
we burn out, and then our willpower just plummets.
Yeah, and then you make bad decisions.
And then we end up in these, like, what the hell moments?
Yes.
Where all of our good intentions just go out the window.
It's like, I've already messed up, so who cares?
Yeah.
I'll start again tomorrow,
Yeah.
which never happens.
Right. So it's about finding that sweet spot, that balance between pushing yourself
Yeah.
and giving yourself permission to recharge.
And I guess that balance is going to look different for everyone, right?
Exactly.
So some people love routine and structure, and some people need to be a little more flexible.
Yeah. The key is knowing yourself and knowing what works best for you.
Which I think brings us to one of the most important takeaways from
Yeah.
this whole deep dive.
Yes.
The power of self-awareness.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's like the foundation of everything.
Absolutely. It's about paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, your triggers, understanding your own patterns of behavior.
Because without that, you're just reacting to the world around you.
Yeah, you're just constantly getting pulled in all these different directions
Right.
by your impulses, by external pressures.
You're not in control.
You're like a ship without a rudder, just getting tossed around by the waves.
I like that.
But with self-awareness, you're the captain of your own ship.
You get to steer.
You get to choose your course, you can navigate those storms, and you can get to where you want to go.
And that's what this willpower thing is all about, right?
Yes.
It's not about being perfect.
No.
It's about understanding the tools we have
Right.
and using them to create a life that we actually enjoy.
Yes. It's about embracing the fact that we're all human.
We're not robots.
We have strengths. We have weaknesses.
Yeah.
And willpower, just like any skill, can be learned. It can be cultivated through
Which-
practice and self-compassion.
So as we kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive, think
Sure.
about one thing that really stood out to you today.
Yeah.
Something that made you go, oh, that's why I do that.
Understanding is the first step to change.
Right.
Once you understand this willpower stuff, you can start to use it
Uh-huh.
to make choices that actually lead to a more fulfilling, meaningful life.
You know, it's kind of a relief to realize that willpower isn't about being this perfect robot with like total self-control.
Right.
It's not about trying to reach some impossible goal.
Right.
We all have those days where we're good at it and days where we're not.
Yeah.
Times where we're strong, times where we're weak. You know,
Totally.
it's really about trying to understand yourself better, not judging yourself.
And a lot of those times when we feel weak or we give in to temptation, it's really our biology, not
Yeah.
like a personal failing.
Okay.
Our brains are literally wired to seek pleasure, to conserve energy, to kind of take the easy way out.
Yeah.
It's not a flaw, it's just how we're built.
That makes me feel so much better about those times when I'm like, ugh, I'm just going to order takeout.
Yeah,
Forget cooking a healthy meal.
right.
It's like, okay, brain, I see you trying to conserve energy there.
Right.
Sneaky, but I'm onto your tricks now.
You got it. Knowledge is power, especially with this self-control stuff.
I like that.
The more we know about how our minds work, the better we can set things up.
Yeah.
You know, manage our energy and make decisions that really align with those long-term goals.
Okay.
We become the architects of our own behavior.
So it's not just about willpower. It's like willpower strategy.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Like you have to have a plan for when those impulses come knocking.
Okay. I like that.
You need a toolbox with all these different techniques, and you need to know which one to use when.
Right.
And you have to be adaptable because things don't always go as planned.
That's for sure. Life is always throwing curveballs. There are always going to be these like unexpected challenges or
Yeah.
tempting things, you know,
Right.
moments where you're just like, I give up.
Yeah.
So how do we build that resilience, that ability to bounce back
That's a good question.
from those setbacks?
That's where self-compassion comes in.
Okay.
Setbacks are going to happen, but they don't have to completely derail us.
Right.
It's about learning from what went wrong and adjusting how we approach things.
Okay.
And most importantly, being kind to ourselves when we fail.
It seems like beating yourself up about it just makes things worse.
It does. Guilt and shame are not good motivators.
Yeah.
Actually, there's research that shows that self-criticism makes us even more likely to give in to temptation again.
Really?
Yeah, it weakens our resolve.
Interesting.
But when we come at those slip-ups with self-compassion, when we treat ourselves the way we treat a friend,
Yeah.
that actually makes our willpower stronger.
Okay.
It helps us get back on track faster and with a lot less drama.
So instead of saying, ugh, I can't believe I ate that cookie, it's like, okay, it happened. What can I learn from it?
Yeah.
And move on.
It's about understanding that we're all human.
Right.
We're all works in progress. And we're all capable of growing and changing.
I like that.
And that whole process, that journey of self-improvement, it starts with self-awareness.
That seems to be the theme that keeps coming up in this whole willpower conversation, right?
It is. Self-awareness is the foundation. It's the key to unlocking our potential.
It's the key.
It's like a compass that guides us towards a life that feels truly fulfilling.
I like that.
A life where we're not just reacting to our urges all the time, but we're choosing our path.
We're in control.
And I think that's a goal worth working towards.
It definitely is.
Mm.
So as you go about your week, your life, remember that you're not alone in this whole willpower thing.
Yeah.
We all have those battles between that impulsive side and that wiser side.
Mm-hmm.
But the more we understand the science of willpower, the more we can use those evidence-based strategies we talked about.
Right.
And most importantly, we have to remember to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah. Self-compassion is huge.
We can all become masters of our own minds and create a life we actually love.
Absolutely.
And maybe, just maybe, we can all achieve that genius-level willpower we're striving for.
I love it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of your own mind and keep working towards that brilliant, balanced life you deserve.